Yo, what is up, YouTube? It's RP Gang, RP Nation, RP Boxing, YBP MMA. And I'm coming at y'all with a new news report coming from TAS Sports. If I can read the exact report that's come out, I think Happy Punch tweeted it out. But they're reporting that Islam Makhachev, the lightweight champion of the world, undisputed champion of the world, is turning down a fight with Ilia Topuria. And by the way, Islam Makhachev, I think, is the number one pound-for-pound fighter in the world as of now. Topuria, a lot of people would argue that he's the, one of the best fighters in the world, if not, 1, 2, maybe 3. He's right up there with Islam Makhachev. So you have an amazing opportunity to pair those two together and see an amazing fight. Obviously, with Topuria moving up from 145, vacating that belt so that Volkanovski and Diego Lopez can fight. I think that's the next pay-per-view that's coming out. So it's a very interesting clashing of styles between the two, and a lot of fans have been speculating that it would be Islam and Topuria and a potential Hamza DDP pay-per-view in June. It seems like that's not going to happen because Islam Makhachev, he's said in interviews like he doesn't care. Give me what the UFC wants. I'm fine to do it. But now this is very interesting. They say, quote unquote, he has reportedly turned down a fight with Ilia Topuria. Islam has not agreed to this fight. He maintains the position that Topuria needs to earn a title shot at 155 pounds per Makhachev's team via TAS Sports. So this is really interesting. A lot of people are going to say, oh, he's a wuss. You know what I'm saying? He's a cat. You can figure out what I mean by that. But yeah, man, I don't know. I mean, as far as my opinion on it, I do think Topuria needs to kind of earn it. But I think if you're Makhachev, I don't know if he holds that. You literally let Volk get the title shot at that weight class. It does seem like a little bit of ducking because he said in the past that he'd fight Topuria. But I guess the thing is, the options at lightweight are kind of limited though, because what's the alternative to a Topuria title shot is what? Oliveira rematch? Gaethje? No one wants to see him fight Gaethje. And Arman Tsarukyan just pulled out of a fight, and he seemingly has to fight his way back up. So Topuria, when you look at those options, Topuria seems like a pretty viable fight to happen. I don't think it's necessarily undeserved. Topuria went out there and beat the two. He didn't clear the division, but he beat the two greatest guys in that division. Top two guys, Volk and Holloway. Obviously there's something to be said about not fighting Lopez. He didn't fight, what's his name? Movsar Evloev. Didn't fight Aljamain Sterling. Didn't fight some of the other guys there, which honestly are some fights that maybe not Diego Lopez, but I think Movsar and Aljo present some interesting challenges for Topuria that he hasn't faced yet. Those guys are very good grapplers. More Aljo, I would say. I'm an Aljo fan, by the way, so not even to be biased, but a dominant grappler like that, I think, is a really good style to take down to defeat a guy like Ilia Topuria, because I don't think you're gonna to beat him. I think to beat Ilia Topuria, and this is a whole nother video for another day, but you have to have really good grappling. You have to have decent enough striking. But if grappling's your ace and you can take him down, I don't think Topuria is as good of a grappler as we think he is. I think it's just oh, well, he's so good on the hands. Well, wait till you see his grappling. I know this is ace, but I don't think he's on the level of a guy like Aljamain Sterling. I don't think he can do what Movsar did either. And Movsar is a really good matchup because even though he might not have the power or the finishing ability, he can go all 5 rounds. He can strike at a really good level, a really good, amazing level. And his wrestling's pretty solid. He's just a well-rounded guy. And then with a guy like Lopez, he can hit really hard. I think having power against a guy like Topuria, it might not matter because you might just get smoked yourself, but if you can hit hard too, I think that helps your chances in a fight like this. You have at least some sort of finishing ability. So I think there's a lot of matchups that he hasn't necessarily had to answer those questions to. He fought Max, he fought Volk, but those guys aren't necessarily power punchers. I know Max, beat Gaethje, but that was I don't want to call it a fluke, but it was he was outclassing him on the feet. The knockout kind of came just off them throwing haymakers at the end of the fight. It kind of just happened, just throughout the chaos. And that's something that Max Holloway can do, but he hasn't fought a heavy hitter. I guess he fought Emmett, but again, I feel like Lopez is different. Because Lopez, again, another guy who has some really good jiu-jitsu. He's a young, hungry guy. Emmett's super old. He's 38. I know he can still crack. He cracked Bryce Mitchell, but it's just different matchups. So he still has some questions to answer at that weight class. But as far as, being those top two guys, those guys were the. We'll see what Volk does against Lopez, but I think Volk can beat Lopez. That's a fight that is super close, though. He answered those questions. So for Islam, I just wonder, like, this is the biggest fight that you can create in the UFC. Why not go at it? If I know he gets those, critics who say, oh, like his whole resume is just 145ers, and you have the Jed Meshews of the world who are like, oh, well, fight the guys in your weight class. Well, the thing is, like, Topuria literally vacated the belt in that weight class. He was a dominant champion, beat a guy like Volk, beat a guy like Max. I say give him the shot. I don't know. I think in a day and age where we're dying for stars and we're starving for not new talent, but people who can, like, captivate the sport, who can bring it out of, like, the little shell that we're in. Because obviously people like to point to, like, oh, Pereira, Pereira was a huge star, but even Pereira, he was only a huge star in the context of, like, our little combat sports world. Like, I feel like he didn't necessarily, like, reach that outside, like, the casual, But I think the guys like Topuria, Hamzat, Islam, they could definitely do it. So why not take the two best guys and put them together? I think that was the UFC's plan. But, it seems like Topuria is going to have to go out there and beat a guy like Charles, beat a guy like Armand, Gaethje, Poirier, somebody before he gets that, which I don't really have a problem with. But it's a little weird from Islam's perspective. I feel like he shouldn't be the one to turn that down. If anything, the UFC should be the ones to be like, hey, let's slow it down. But again, the biggest fight that you could possibly have in your career, and you turn it down. And that just shows. I think people know, like, Topuria has a real shot. Honestly, I would pick Islam because the evidence shows when Topuria has moved up to lightweight, he hasn't looked that good. He got nearly finished by Jai Herbert. Obviously, he got the finish late, but he still has to prove himself. So honestly, I'm talking myself into understanding where Islam's coming from, but I guess maybe not from a meritocracy standpoint, it doesn't really make sense. But as far as, like, a huge fight, it's a huge fight, but it's a risky fight too. But I think that's so perfect, But I guess he wants to see him earn it, because maybe he doesn't even have to fight Topuria. Maybe he doesn't even have to prove that he can do it. But let's see, man. Let's see what direction the UFC goes. It seems like they're pushing for Gaethje versus Makhachev, which is so disappointing. I'm not gonna lie. Like, this guy just got flatlined by Max, and then he looked good against Fiziev though. No lie. Like, he looked amazing. Like, his striking looked really good. But again, it's hard to rate that because it was Fiziev on, like, 2 weeks notice. 2 weeks notice, coming off of a bad knee injury. So it's, I don't know, asterisk. But again, Gaethje was preparing for Hooker. Both strikers, but Fiziev mixed in some wrestling. But it's a weird one. It's a weird one. I'd like to see Fiziev on a full camp and then run that back. But then him to get a title shot off that, it's like, I want to see. I've been wanting to see Islam against the new generation, like, for a while. Even, Islam Fiziev would have been cool. He lost though. Islam Armand. I think they should just rebook that. Charles is out there. But yeah, if Topuria wants to get in that mix, looks like he's going to have to fight one of these top contenders. It's really interesting, though. It's just, I thought this, I was looking for something to talk about on a Sunday afternoon after church. This just came out like 14 minutes ago. I'm surprised by this, like, assessment by Islam. Like, I thought Islam would just take the fight on, but I guess not. Because I feel like if Islam, if they said, okay, let's we want you to fight Paddy after Paddy, like, beats Chandler, he's not gonna say, oh, this guy doesn't deserve it. So I feel like Topuria, maybe that's not the best example because at least that's a guy in his weight class, but for him to turn down Topuria, it's kind of interesting. Yeah, it's interesting. It's just interesting to see, like, what's going on there. But yeah, Islam has not agreed to this fight. He made his position that Topuria needs to earn a title shot at 155. Yeah, it's interesting that, like, Topuria is the guy who has to earn the title shot. Whereas, like, I don't know. I feel like he wouldn't keep that same energy with, like, other contenders. Didn't Poirier get, like, didn't he get a title shot off a loss? If I'm not mistaken, I don't even know. I forgot how that title shot even came about. I'm not gonna lie. But it's just interesting. Obviously, it's all circumstance, it's all timing, it's all availability, but Yeah, man. Shout out to Islam though. Islam's a very good fighter, very good champion. Shout out to Topuria. I just want to see those guys fight. So it's unfortunate to see that Islam's taking this stance, but yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Official prediction for this fight though is I think Islam wins. So it's not even like a thing about he's scared, But maybe he is though. I think there's growing belief that Topuria can get it done, considering the success that Volk had in their first fight. You never know, man. You never know. And I think as these fights keep going on and on, like that Poirier, you rewatch that Poirier fight, man. I don't know, man. Poirier had his moments. Like Poirier, like if he doesn't get subbed, I mean, I know the scorecards they had Islam comfortably ahead, but I don't know. I mean, I watched that fight. I thought it was 3-1 Islam, but it wasn't like there's a difference between, because I'm of the belief that just because someone has won like all these rounds, like if they won a decision 5-0, you could win. It's just like the Strickland and Cannonier fight. You could win a decision 5-0, but all those rounds could be like close. I thought Islam, man, could have easily lost those rounds against like Poirier. And Poirier did a really good job of, defending those takedowns. Did a really good job of, stifling the offense that Makhachev had. And then, so Makhachev had to rely on that striking. And Poirier is a really good striker. He has really good grappling as well. Probably better grappling than, he definitely has better grappling than a guy like Poirier. The size is an issue, but that lower center of gravity with a smaller frame like Topuria. He's strong. He's like, he's like a meatball of muscle. It's interesting. It's interesting to talk about, I don't know. But again, when Topuria moved up and fought at lightweight, at least in the UFC, he got head kicked, nearly got put out. And what did Makhachev finish Volk with in their rematch? A head kick. So it's interesting. It's a good fight, but this dialogue, this is the excitement that we need out of a fight, out of an event, out of a contest. I feel like we don't really get that. Like Roman Dolidze, Vettori just wrapped up. Wasn't too much buzz for him, man. People didn't really care. I know we have Leon Edwards and Sean Brady. I'm excited for that. I think that's a really good fight. And then Jan Blachowicz versus Carlos Oberg. That's really good. But again, like just that we don't have that same buzz, they usually do. Like that UFC London card is missing like a Paddy Pimblett, like somebody like that. But we'll see how it plays out. Great fights coming. Unfortunately, this fight might not come to fruition. But yeah, that's all I really got for y'all today. Leave a like, comment, subscribe. Peace out, most guys. It is.